Thank you. Well, I'm not going to waste your time because these three women are just absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for you to hear what they have done with their lives. As we know, so many different things have changed over the last 50 years, 100 years, and as we look at Women's History Month, we need to really pay attention to what's enabling that change to occur. And one of the first women that I ever had the opportunity to know who absolutely defied the expectations and decided to launch an opportunity to build her own empire, financial empire, later in life, and defied what everyone said was, this is for a men's only environment. And she actually built it, was Joan Wynne. So Joan, I wanted to ask you a very direct question. What gave you the audacity to believe you could do what you did?
Well, I started the Sedan business, and then it morphed into minibuses and motor coaches. And I just felt like Dallas, this is 30 years ago, needed a black car service, like New York, LA. It was kind of Uber before Uber. And so then I was taking CEOs of major corporations to the airport, and then I started networking with people around the United States and then ultimately around the world. Like we would send people to Hong Kong. For instance, the CEO of GI would be in the car in Dallas going to DFW, and the reservations would say, "Oh, where are you going?" He said, "Well, ultimately," or his admin, ultimately Hong Kong. We would provide ground transportation in Hong Kong. And it just grew and grew and grew. And actually, I retired 4 years ago, but just make it happen. Find the niche in your city that is lacking, and go for it. I also joined the Women-Owned Business Council, which was unbelievable in throwing business my way. They would have seminars and rodeos, they called them, and major corporations would come like TI, ExxonMobil, Frito-Lay, and we would have a chance to talk to people one-on-one. And you would even be able to raffle and buy a ticket for lunch with the CEO. And when you get to talk to them, it's something else. And if they believe in you, which they did, finally they said, "This gal ain't going away." Because I would show up every year and hammer on them until they gave me business. And that was about it. I worked for 25 years and then sold it to a private equity group out of Boston. Came and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, is your company for sale?" And I said, "Oh no." At this point I was 70 years old, and I said, "Wait a minute, I think I am ready to retire." So that's about it. But you just got to find your niche and work your butt off.
And then it comes to really breaking a lot of glass ceilings. And one of the things one of the things I love so much about your story is that it sounds like you never hesitated, that you never thought twice about doing it. So, and that's also an attitude I know that's shared by other two panelists. And Tania, growing up in a small town in Mexico where you're expected to basically be a mom in your teens and not go after your dream, to now where you've made several multi-million-dollar corporations and just landed a Nike deal on one of the things. I know that you also innovated a whole development down the Yucatan where you're recognized as one of the top environmental developers in the country of Mexico for what you're doing. What made you believe you could innovate something that no one else had done before?
Well, I feel you have to always follow your dreams. I have to say, definitely I didn't want to be just at home growing up with no opportunities. Nothing wrong with that, but I knew within myself that I wanted to expand and explore. My passion started in archaeology. I had a passion in archaeology. And then I wanted to go to architectural school and business school. In order for me to achieve that, I had to have a scholarship. So my way to do it was through sports, and I was fast track representing my state. And I think that helped me to understand the energy within me and the energy within how can I achieve going after something that I really want. So sports, I would say that it's always been a great inspiration for me, because that same built-in energy and then the way that you can manage the stress and stuff. Back in being a teenager, I can now put it back at being an entrepreneur and have success. Now, how I can show there where there is an opportunity, like the way that I started building my buildings in Mexico, in the area of Tulum in the Yucatan. I visit as one of those tourists many years ago. And I just fell in love with the place, and I fell in love with the idea and knowing that the economical growth was going to go that way. So I wanted to become an investor, but I would say everything starts with a vision, and you have to direct the passion and use everything within you to make sure that you create results.
I know one of the most amazing things that happened, for those of you who've gone out to Tulum, you probably know what happens. They just raise down the rainforest, put concrete down, put up a big, hotel, and then the thing that attracted everybody there disappears. And I don't know many developments where the toucans actually came back, where endangered plants came back because you built. And I think that's incredible. And that makes me think in terms of conscious capitalism and social responsible investing. We're all making decisions every day that have the ability and will impact. But everyone in this room, you have so much power because most of us are the boss of whatever organization we run. And are we making the choices that are going to have I think I just lost the sound, thank you. Are we making the choices? Oh, I'll just project. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, are we making the choices that are actually going to have a long-term impact? And when we recognize that we will, our ignorance ends up being a very big detriment to our society and to our species. And I know one of the main people that's thinking a lot about that is Chelsea Toler. Chelsea, can you tell us why you put so much emphasis on conscious capitalism and social responsible investing in addition to philanthropy?
Sure. So in answering that, I'm actually going to ask all of you a question. If you have kids, or even if you're responsible for children in the next generation in this room, will you raise your hand? Okay. Now, if you feel like you have properly structured your knowledge, shared everything that you know, empowered them to build the world with everything that you can to make a more impactful and better society and world, and you've put the time and the effort and the systems in place to do that, raise your hand. Okay, that's a significantly smaller number, yes? So I think I asked that question. One of the things and the reasons that Chris Fronda and I started Logic Tree is to help people do that. And one of the reasons that I decided for our family office to start our family foundation was to give next gens and the next generation the possibility to fail and for that to be okay, but to also give them the support, the love, the access, the knowledge to mentors both inside their family and outside of their family. I think that's the way that we move forward. I think we have to work together. I hope to see rooms like these that also have Gen Z, Gen Alpha, able to shadow all of the amazing people in this room and learn how do we exchange that knowledge, right? So I've put a lot of effort into impact investing with returns, philanthropy, because I see it as the best use of the way of humanity to create a world that I want to be a part of.
Absolutely. One of the stories I like to share, and maybe some of you have heard me say this before, but for those who haven't, I have a very distinct memory of being a young kid and my father, would bring home what I called his homework, stacks of paper. Many of you who are CEOs see the same thing. And I was nosy, went through it. And on one side, they had a list of countries' names. And on the other side, they had a list of numbers. And it went from $1.15 all the way up to $20. And I said, what is this for? And he said, I need to manufacture something. And my shareholders have said it will be $7.50 is all they're willing to spend on it. So I asked them, as a little kid would, I was like 4 or 5, well then, why don't you go to the people asking for like $1.17 or $2.50 and get them the pre-approved $7.50 and make everybody happy. And then I just skipped away. And he came over and he got on his knees and looked eye to eye with me and said, thank you for reminding me what my real job is in this world. And then I forgot all about it. And back in high school, he came in and he said, remember that time? We did that. And I want you to know, they built hospitals, schools, roads, and my dime was charity. And this is what I mean. A lot of us like to separate our ability to make an impact as philanthropy from our day-to-day decision-making. But your day-to-day decision-making is shaping our world. So as more and more people are taking a greater awareness, and especially as women, who typically care about families and the future are getting more power. This is one of the things I think that Women's Rise can kind of bring more attention to. So Johnny, I'm wondering, as you started, your business, what kind of impact did you notice it was having, maybe intentionally, unintentionally, among women and the community as you were rising?
What kind of impact on the women? Well, again, that Women-Owned Business Institute promoted women in business, and I was in a business that was predominantly male-oriented, so I met her mother, and I've known Marianne since she was born, actually, so it's very special for me to be on this panel.
Thank you. I'm curious, Chelsea, when you hear someone from Joan's generation and what they did, how does that affect you? And what would you want to, in turn, affect for the next generations that come after you?
The first word that comes to mind is proud. So I think people like Joan that have forged this pathway for us, it's now our time and our opportunity to leave a legacy of trust, right? Of trust, of pride, of hope. So who are we going to bet on, and how, when we get our success, like Joan has had, who are the up and coming women that I can now support, I can leave a legacy for, I can pave a way for. So it gives me hope that while, according to our UN partners, SDG, gender equality, we're not there yet, investing in women and girls matters. So how do we invest in them, and who can I invest in that's going to be the next Joan of our era?
And Tania, what would you say for any of those women that are maybe in their teens and have the same kind of dreams now that you had, that really don't see a future? Where would they even begin?
Community. I always believe that you have to get together, and not only as an offer the opportunity, but also being part of a community that will allow you to step on the right direction and also correct it, because sometimes we just don't know what we don't know, and it's okay. Failure is not the issue. What is the issue is not keep trying it until actually the success happens. So I feel not only for females, especially I have to say, every time we have a panel about women, we need to remember we are actually in a partnership. This is men and women working together to thrive, all of us. And also we want families thriving, whatever the type of family it is. So I understand, like, as a woman, I can tell you that we have a lot of creative energy. I mean, I gave birth 3 years ago, and that was like a lot of amazing, I was amazed at how humanity is built. But it's just not about only having that creative energy as a woman. You can do a lot of things in your life every day by using the tools that have been given to us. We have our body, we have our brain, we have our ideas. I feel like the teenagers need to see the generations trying hard enough that you care. You need to show all these generations that the way to do it is to get involved. So just simple actions as recycle correctly, or simple actions as composting, or choosing a vacation that is actually good for you and for the environment, or just going and getting some interest in a tribe, like when was the last time, asking you questions, and when was the last time that you actually brought the global world into your thoughts and into the thoughts to others. So the new generations, women especially in this panel talking about, they know for sure that they have an opportunity. Sometimes, me being a little teenager, I didn't know if I was going to have an opportunity, and until I just trust. And I think that's something we need to see in other generations, that trusting that it can be done, and holding the hand from the person that you have next to and say, we will do it together.
I think one of the things that's easy for people to forget, and I know I witnessed this with my father's company as he was doing, there's something that we all call the old boy network. And while no one wants to talk about it, women quite often were competing to have that opportunity to be at the top. So it almost worked in reverse. They almost tried not to help each other because they thought we only have one room for us. And if people can remember and recognize that when you empower someone, a woman or a man, you're actually empowering your network. You lift someone up and put them in a position of power, you have that much more influence. So, try not to only look at it competitively, look at it as how you're building your influence. I've been able to negotiate the first treaty in 300 years between Hopi and Navajo nations. We got the most people in front of the Liberian Truth Reconciliation Commission. We've been able to do so many different things like this because of networks. And one of the people I know that is brilliant is that, Chelsea. I know you've been working a lot with the United Nations, and you just had a whole thing on Logic Day. Can you tell people about how you're parlaying your network to empower things with social responsible investing, conscious capitalism?
Sure. So I think building networks, but also building communities of trust, right? I know that seems to be a theme amongst a lot of us, is how do we really model trust and display that, and then allow for that to accelerate, right? So as an example, right, Marianne may not tell you this story, but one of the cities that was in a bit of trouble during the snowstorm was Austin. And let's just say the city council didn't exactly have the best plan, or really any plan, and so they relied on various community leaders to reach out and see how do we solve this problem. We're not going to have access to food. We're not going to have access to shelters for homeless people. We're not going to have access to transportation. And so as an example of what I'm talking about, this community of trust and a sign of, when you give to women and you bet on them, and all people really, the generosity can tenfold, right? So a bit of trust. I reached out to Marianne, who knew me through various communities called Nexus, and said, Marianne, I know you're working on getting food to Texas and maybe Dallas more specifically. Is there any way, if I can bring in some other funders and some other partners, that we could get some of that to Austin? And we worked together to do that, right? But that happens because of networks, that happens because of community, that happens because of trust, right? So my advice is, as we build a world that is going to take a lot of problem solving and a lot of networking and a lot of different systems, and this might be a bit of a bold statement, but I feel like I can say it because I come from a family office, there is not enough capital from my family office to solve it. There is not enough capital from all of our family offices to solve it without trust.
Absolutely. Joan, what is something, because I know you have a son, Shell, who's helped build your company with you. What are the most important things you would like this audience to know about building a legacy, building it with family, and how that's affected your vision of the future?
Yeah, that was wonderful. It made me work even harder to know that I could leave the company to my son, who is still working there, and it would be a shame to work so hard and then sell it and you're done. Somebody else is running it. But I have a quick funny story. I would cry all the time when I started my business. I just can't do this. I can't do it anymore. So I would call him at school and say, help me, help me. He was in Europe going to school, and he said, Mom, I can't come home. You can do this. You can do this. So he was in an airport, and this woman was at a kiosk, a little cafe, and she was crying. And he went over and he said, oh, what's wrong? And she said, I own my own business. He said, oh, my mother owns her own business, and she cries all the time. Right. So it takes a lot of hard work. Don't give up, even though I cried every day for months. I said, I can do this. I'm not going to give up. And, had I been Uber instead of, what I was, we didn't have the technology then, of course, the GPS and, how we could send cars, but, Uber was, unbelievable. So, I was onto a right idea. I was just a little too early.
Thank you. When we start looking at things multi-generational, we usually talk about building things between generations of families. And what we also don't openly talk about, we don't articulate that we need to be passing our value systems within those structures, because the structures are a machine. They're not the soul, they're not the intelligence, they're not the experience, the wisdom that each of you have. So what is it that you want to shape your country and your community and the world with? Because as you build these machines we call corporations, you're actually shaping the future of society. You're doing nothing less than creating the kind of future your children and grandchildren will inherit. So what do you want that to be? So I want to make sure that we're paying attention to time. So is there anything, and I'll start with you, Joan, when we come this way, what is one thing you would like these people in this room, knowing that they're empowered to make major decisions that can impact the world, what is the one thing you would like them to think about?
I guess that I've mentioned several times, just find that niche, go for it. Enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy your work, you're doomed. You know, the rest of your life you have to do something that you don't care for. And so I for some reason I liked limousines and cars, and that's what I loved. And so I went for it and enjoyed 25 years of it. And of course now I'm retired and love that even more.
I would say vulnerability and the willingness to ask and build and solve the hard problems, and doing that through sharing your knowledge and expertise. I think, you know, one of the things Marianne asked me is, yes, I have built a variety of communities and networks, but what I see that is needed in the world now is not only giving of our time, of our capital, of our even social capital or networks, but really harnessing the value of the knowledge that we have and working together instead of applying a scarcity mindset. We can only tackle these problems, and we're a lot stronger if we work together. So I would say that's what I want to see.
I design green buildings, and I do master plans with a strategy in consideration of the environment and the coexistence. And that's what my daughter is observing from me. I would say all of us need to do more of that. I think there's not enough care of the environment or the conservation or preservation of the environment in all of our industries. I believe that we should take a commitment in that everything that we're doing has an impact in different levels, not only community. Obviously, we need to start keep fighting poverty through all the spectrum, but also at the same time we need to make sure that we care and protect for all the species and all the environments and everything that is within our house and expand it out. So my advice is very simple. Just question yourself. How are you making it better? And if you're not satisfied with the answer, then go find it.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that I want to share with all of you, I have a UTF Holdings, which is an investment company. I have Eco, which I'm building with Tania, which is a solar series of solar power facilities across the state of Texas. We're doing many, many different things. And what I want to encourage many of you who do wonderful humanitarian work in this room, in addition to your business, is recognize everything as a tool. Your nonprofit, who you donate to, it's wonderful to be a philanthropist. Don't stop. But be aware, through being consciously aware of how you're making your capital, hence conscious capitalism, or how you're investing, is also a major impact in this world. So if you're aware of all of it, then you have more tools. And the question isn't whether you have those tools or not, you do have them by virtue of being who you are. It's whether you're going to do it in ignorance or blindly, or you're actually going to take full responsibility and impact intentionally. And while I'm up here, I also want to recognize, I don't know where Denny is, but the power of networking. One of the amazing things that happened from this conference last year is that he connected my organization, the Limousine Institute, with a foundation called Akshaya Patra Foundation. And they're around the world. And already, one of our directors in the Limousine Institute, Reverend Dr. Todd Collier, please Ray, that's him right there, he's actually run an operation that saved $55 million worth of food that would have gone into the landfills over the years. And that was before we got connected with Akshaya Patra. And now, thanks to that, Denny, East Palestine received lots of food, drinks, a whole community, and that was largely in part because of you. So I just want to acknowledge that. Of the network. And so any of you that want to be part of some of the things that any of us are doing, I want to close now by inviting all of these women, just like I did, to share some of the exciting things they have around the corner.
Yes, solar farms in the state of Texas and Colorado next. We are doing agro-solar, and we're combining also pollination solutions to make sure that we take care of our bees we need to, and also any other solar we would say renewables. That's what we are right now. With this is green energy through Eco. And building green architecture, doing basically exotic destinations to preserve the areas, because a lot of us, we want those amazing Caribbean waters, and we don't understand what it costs to have millions of people flying out to all parts of the world to enjoy that photo and that Instagram. That's perfectly fine, but what we're doing is architecture by like doing modular architecture, protecting the jungle, making sure that the jungle stays there, so the humans can coexist, and that's the big one. So green architecture, I'm going to be here networking. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have.
So I would say one of the things that I've really kind of had to look inside myself to figure out is, as Marianne said, I wear a lot of hats and I'm doing a lot of different things, but what is the thing that I think can best impact the world? So I'm going to build one more network. So one more network, at least for now, that shapes what I think can create a better future. So we're partnering with the UN, but we're going to be building an expertise network. So some of the top experts in AI, we've got folks that are connected to the inventor of Google Translate and keeping human intelligence at the center. We've got UNICEF and NextGen and various organizations talking about their journey as NextGen's an impact, but our concept will be one community that really takes their expertise in every single area, and we're gonna try and distill that to the world. I cannot do this alone. We are a team of 3. Having said that, when I helped with Giving Tuesday and Amplify Austin Day, we were a team of 5, so you know, it's possible. But that's what I will be focusing on this year. The additional thing I will mention is I'm finishing my PhD specifically on next-gen women in impact and the UN SDGs. So if you are a next-gen and or women in impact, and or somebody that wants to talk about education or share your story or be a part of this network, I would love to talk to you.
You all have brought up a question about check if you're doing all you can for the environment. And that really hit home with me. I'm going to analyze that. Now with grandkids, I've got to, take care of business. So I think that's really opened my eyes.
Thank you. One of the other things I just wanted to add, here in Dallas, for those that might want to be involved, we've been donated land directly behind City Hall to the Limousine Center. We're going to be building our center for our global and local outreach, and in there will be an AI that's called the Vital Signs Monitor, and it is helping basically communities, the United Nations, and other groups to look at how the Sustainability Development Goals can actually be analyzed within your community. What does it take for your community to reach that? So in a world where we have so much political mimetics thrown at us, it'll allow us to look objectively at what the data says where we are in meeting those goals, which we all need if we want a future. So Joan, what you just said was incredibly impactful, and I'm so glad that all of you are doing what you're doing. Last thing before we end, I just want to acknowledge that Chelsea Toler really is a hero. There were truly, without exaggeration, hundreds of people that would have died in Austin if she had not, with her own dime, found a place where they could be warm, found food for them, and gone out in the freezing when she couldn't get people to donate buses, and personally drove people who were homeless from under bridges. And she kept doing that with her team until there was no one left. So she is... So thank you.